Hi guys, and welcome back to Hilltop Farm, and welcome to another lesson in Wicca. Lesson 3. Lesson 3 is about the Wheel of the Year. Now, the Wheel of the Year. Witches see the endless cycle of the seasons in terms of a turning wheel. We call this the Wheel of the Year. Most Wiccans recognise 8 seasonal turning points. On or around these 8 dates, we celebrate our great rituals and Sabbats. It is by celebrating these Sabbats that we attune ourselves to the seasonal rhythms of nature. Traditionally, the Wiccan year follows both a solar and lunar cycle. Thousands of years ago, human beings would mark the passing of time based on the moon phases and the cropping and hunting cycles. These are the times of celebration as we mark the turning of the Wheel of the Year. There are 4 predominantly solar rituals and 4 predominantly earth-related ones. The solar ones are Litha, Marbon, Yule and Ostara. These are essentially male god rituals where we celebrate the phases of the sun. The 4 earth-orientated seasonal dates are Imbolc, Beltane, Lammas and Samhain. These 4 dates are essential female or goddess rituals where we celebrate the changes left here on Mother Earth as she turns her face towards or away from our ever-present, ever-loving sun god. The Sabbats tell a story. The changing seasons are symbolized by the relationship between the goddess and the god and the effects this has on the fruitfulness of the earth. According to the ancient Celts, the year began and ended at Samhain, with the final gathering of crops and the slaughter of livestock. This was because they could not keep many animals fed through the winter months, so at Samhain they selected the best breeding stock and killed and salted the rest to last until the spring. Our very early ancestors were hunters. They followed the herds. The herds came and went according to the cycles of the mother, and they only celebrated the earth festivals: Imbolc, Beltane, Lammas and Samhain. Later, as they became more settled agriculturalists, they needed sunlight and warmth for their crops. They sowed, planted and harvested according to the cycles of the sun god. They only celebrated the sun festivals: Yule, Ostara, Litha and Marbon. There are many ways to look at the Sabbats. This is what makes the craft so unique. To ask a witch how they perceive what the Sabbats mean to them, you might get a different answer than how you perceive the Sabbats. Indeed, to ask a witch how they view witchcraft at all, you will get different responses. For instance, there are some witches who believe in reincarnation, so your life, death and rebirth theory does not work for them. That does not make their theories wrong and others right, simply because we are connected to the goddess in different ways. The Sabbats are about birthing new ideas or a new way of living life, having balance in your life, creating and being thankful for what we have, not only in each other, but being thankful for the food that comes from the Great Mother. It is about dealing with loss of loved ones and letting go of things we no longer need to make room once again for the birth of new ideas. The Sabbats enrich our lives with a spiritual nature, and as children of the goddess are able to find peace within ourselves and to love all her creations. Through the Sabbats we dance the dance of life and sing, make love, and grow from the lessons we learn from the God as we make our journey on the wheel that Our Lady turns. And now we have printouts, of course. The main lesson will be a printout that you'll find the link for in the description down below. Now on top of that will be a printout, a link to a printout for this pretty little thing here. I don't know how well you can see that, but it is a Wheel of the Year with Samhain, Yule, Imbolc, and so on going around it. Now the other thing that there will be links for down below, and you'll need to print them out, or at least download them to your computer so that you can have access to them. Now there's two of them. The links are quite clearly marked. One is for all students that are learning in the Northern Hemisphere, and one is for all students in the Southern Hemisphere. Obviously, as I said at the beginning of this course, we are in the Southern Hemisphere, so this is what we're following, the Southern one in these lessons. But as I say, I have put one in there for the North, so that all you budding Northern witches out there, when you're out on your own, you will know what dates and festivals correspond with what. Okay, so look out for that, Northern witches, and print that out. Okay, should put that there. Now, remember, this is for the South. The order and the name, the festivals and all exactly the same. The difference is the dates. They're opposite on the wheel, obviously, because we have our seasons opposite to each other. So, the Wheel of the Year consists, and that's the other thing I will mention, you will see on this list there are multiple names for each festival. Everyone has different names they call them, different followings, different paths of Wicca use different terminology. You pick what you are drawn to. I've already read out the names of the 8 Sabbats, and that's what I call them. That's what they will be referred to through this course. But that doesn't mean to say that the other names are incorrect. They're just used by people in other branches of Wicca. So whatever you are drawn to, you may use. To be honest with you, some of them I can't even get my tongue around, so I'm not even going to attempt it. But when you print it out, you will see. We start with Samhain. Samhain marks the end of the year and the start of the new year, and is the most important Sabbat. It is the time to remember the ancestors, and the time to celebrate the harvest and all that's been accomplished over the year. And that is for the South. April 30th is the last day of the year. May 1st is the first day of the year. We here celebrate, the actual celebration is actually on April 30th of an evening. That's when we hold it, and we basically it's like seeing out the old year, seeing in the new. In very much the same way as most people around the world do see the new year in on the more conventional calendar. Except the drunken revelry is not quite as bad here. Anyway, the next festival is Yule. Ring a bell? Yes. June 21st, Yule. Yule is the longest night and the shortest day of the year. This is the time to celebrate the return of the light. Yule is the solar turning of the tides, and the newborn sun offers a fresh start and literally a new day. It is a time of renewal and hope. The next one in the list is on August 1st and is Imbolc. Imbolc is a preparation for spring. At Imbolc, Wiccans clean and organise their living environments, as well as their minds and hearts, in preparation for the upcoming season of growth. It's a time to shake off the doldrums of late winter and light the fires of creativity and inspiration. So at Imbolc, we're basically past the middle of winter. We're not into spring yet, but it's on the horizon and we're preparing for it. September 22nd, Ostara. Winter is now over. Light is increasing. The day and night are equal in length at the equinox. Spring has arrived or is coming soon. Ostara is the time of fertility, birth and renewal. The ice is thawing and the growing season for plants and animals begins. Growth is the theme of this day. You see a pattern emerging, can you? Yeah, it's all about the seasons. Moving on to October 31st, Beltane. I will just point out some of the other names for Beltane are, or one of the other names I should say, sorry, is May Day. That's because in the north it is celebrated end of April, beginning of May. So that's why it was called May Day. But we're down south, we have the opposite. So we call it Beltane. Beltane is the time of the marriage and the union of the goddess as Mother Earth and the god of the greenwood. It is an ancient fertility festival, marking the beginning of the planting cycle. The festival was to ensure a good growing season and a bountiful harvest. Beltane is light-hearted and joyful. Next on the calendar is December 21st. Litha. Litha is the longest day and the shortest night of the year. Light triumphs, but will now begin to fade into darkness as autumn approaches. The crops are planted and growing. The woods and forests have reached their peak fulfillment. This is a time of abundance for wildlife, including people. The holiday is a joyous one. Then we move along to February 2nd. Lammas. For the ancient pagans, Lammas was a time for both hope and fear. They held hope for a bountiful harvest and abundant food, but they feared that the harvest wouldn't be large enough and that the cold months would be filled with struggle and deprivation. At Lammas, modern Wiccans also face their fears. Concentrate on developing their own abilities and take steps to protect themselves and their homes. And finally, in the wheel, we hit March 21st, which is Marbon. At Marbon, the day and the night are equal in length, in sublime balance. For many locations, Marbon coincides with the final harvest of grain, fruits and vegetables. Marbon, also called Harvest Home, is the time of Thanksgiving. The beauty and bounty of summer gives way to the desolation of winter, and the darkness overtakes the light. Now, in this week's homework assignment, this printout with those details that I just read out of the 8 festivals, you have to familiarise yourself with the names of the festivals and their basic meaning. You don't have to use, as I say, the other names. You find a name that you're comfortable with for those festivals. but you need to know what some of the other names are, because you need to recognise them. When other people use them, you won't know what they're talking about, so you need to know that. So you need to familiarise yourself with that. You also, as I say, I've given a brief meaning that I've read out, so a brief meaning to each one so that you roughly know what it's about. At this stage, that's all I want you to know. I don't want you to go on the internet or get books and study each individual festival. There's too much to take in, it's too involved. Each festival there is a separate lesson on, and we will cover each one as we get to it. So don't waste your time now. As I say, it will be covered comprehensively in a lesson on its own. Obviously the next lesson, the next festival is Yule here in the Southern Hemisphere. So that's the next lesson we'll be doing. I'll start again. It's not the next lesson, but the next festival we do a lesson about. So just prior to the 21st of June, which is when Yule is, we will cover Yule in a lesson, so that when it comes around, when it hits, you'll know what to do. Alright? And the same pattern will follow all the way through until at the end of the end of April next year, as the course is almost drawing to a close. One of the final lessons is going to be Samhain. Okay, and being the most important one in the Wiccan wheel, that's why I've decided to start where I did at the beginning of the new year, and that's why I'm ending with the Samhain Festival. So you need to know all that. I suggest the students in the Northern Hemisphere actually learn the one for their for the North. As I say, the details of the festivals are identical, it's just when you celebrate them is going to be different. So for the first 12 months of your Wiccan life, your Wiccan training, you will just have to go along with what we're doing here in the South, and that's fine. When you're set free to go it alone, that's when you can switch across to the Northern calendar. Now you're probably wondering, why do we celebrate these festivals? You might think they don't apply now, they're not relevant, but I assure you they are. Do you remember in the introduction I said the main thing about Wicca was getting in touch with Mother Nature? You won't need to see weather reports and all that kind of thing. This helps you attune to it. This is what our ancestors did. They paid attention to the weather patterns, the hours of daylight, the migration of animals, when things were starting to grow, when they would bear fruit, all this sort of thing. That's how they knew. It's how they were successfully able to domesticate animals and breed them in a farm type way. It's how our ancestors were able to go from being hunter-gatherers to farmers with crops. They had to learn when to control the growth of plants. They had to learn when to plant the seeds, when they grew, when they bared fruit. And having done all that, they then worked out that there was a period of time where food was scarce because animals couldn't find food, and vegetation, vegetable matter type food wasn't available to animals or people. So they learnt to grow food when the weather was conducive, and then over time they then learnt how to preserve it so that they could still have food when it wasn't able to be grown. That way they were able to keep sheep and cattle and goats and chickens and this kind of thing. There's a period of time where the feed is scarce for these things. So they had a limited amount they could give them, because they could store a certain amount of hay or whatever it happened to be. They couldn't feed a large flock. So they would thin the flock out to only the bare minimum of what they needed. And they would preserve the rest. But of course in doing so, there's nothing, if you're going to kill a load of chickens, for example, there's nothing like fresh chicken, as opposed to, for example, chicken meat that's been made into a jerky or something like that. It's not unpleasant, but you'd soon get sick of it. So when they'd have those festivals, when they'd have those times where they were culling all their chickens, for example, or culling sheep and preserving them to last them through the winter, that week or so where they were doing all the culling, meat was bountiful. So they had these feasts and these festivals to celebrate. And that was true whether they were harvesting grain and they were making breads and this sort of thing, or they had pumpkins by the thousands, or whatever. Whenever there was a glut, there would be a feast based around that glut of food, and then the rest would be preserved, and they would be pace themselves, basically. They would know, for example, if we've got X amount of meat that we've preserved, they knew how long it would last. They knew how long it had to last, because it's going to be a certain time before we can have fresh lambs that we can cull again. So they learned all this, and they didn't learn it on the internet, and they didn't learn it from books. A certain amount was passed from their forefathers, but they learnt it. They learnt it off the land by observation and by living it. And that's what we are trying to do here. We are trying to wake up that dormant part of your brain that we all have, but has not been in use for hundreds of years. We have to wake it up. And to do that, we wake it up by making it acknowledge all these festivals, what they're about, and preferably actually participate, getting your hands dirty. That's going to be obviously more lessons further down the track. But this is the start of the real stuff. This is the start. This is where we're learning about nature, about the cycle of nature from one point in the year doing complete revolution back to that same point. This is where it starts. We all know it in theory, but we all know it in theory only. We know in winter that it gets dark early and we have to carry an umbrella and we get wet, and in summer the sun doesn't go down till late, so we can have barbecues and it's hot and we walk around in shorts and a t-shirt. We know all that, but this will take it to a whole nother level, believe me. It's exciting and I look forward to sharing it all with you. Okay, so don't forget, down below in the description you will have your lesson 3 handout. You will have this pretty little picture that you can either have as a decoration, or you might want to shrink it down or something and have it in your book of shadows. You may want to use it if you're an arty-farty sort of person. You may want to use that as give you ideas for making up your own that can eventually go into your book of shadows. So it's up to you, but there's a link in the description below to print out that. There are 2 links in the description below for these, which are the Wheel of the Year descriptions, one for the north and one for the south, or one for the south and one for the north. Okay, now all that is in the description below, and as I say, your homework this week is to study it, get familiar with it, try and remember as many of the names as you can, and try and be familiar with which festival represents what, and try and study the one for your particular hemisphere. Alright? Okay, that's the end of lesson 3. I want to thank you for joining us here. There are all sorts of books and information about Wicca, about the Wheel of the Year. As most of you know, we are an affiliate with the Book Depository in the UK. They do free shipping worldwide and are extremely good to deal with and reliable and fast. There is a link below, down in the description below this video, that will take you through to the affiliate of ours. If you want a book on Wicca, or anything for that matter, you might be getting a gift for someone, the latest romance novel, or anything to do, any book, whatever it is. You remember us because you can go on that link below, you click in there and go through to the Book Depository website, and then you make your purchases, and they will give us $1 or $2 for every purchase you make, and that just helps our channel keep up with bringing you lessons like this. Also down below you will find the email address to the school. Remember, we are Hilltop School of Witchcraft, and as I say, the email address is down below. If you have any questions at all, you can leave them either in the comments below, or if you'd rather not, if it's long and involved or it's of a personal nature, you are more than welcome to email me at the school. As I say, the email address is down below, but it is Hilltop School of Witchcraft, all one word, at outlook.com, and you just address the subject. In the subject box, you just address it to me. So that is it for this week. Join me again next week for lesson number 4. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and you hit the little bell next to the subscribe button, so hopefully you'll be notified whenever a video is loaded. And until next time, it's goodbye from Hilltop Farm. See ya!